Thanks, everybody, for coming for this very important subject. And before I read my opening statement, I want to thank Senator Sanders for his cooperation. I went to him about a month ago and I said I'd like to have this hearing on this very day. And he very quickly said yes, and it was going to be a bipartisan meeting. And I hope that sets the stage for the fact that nothing on this subject of Social Security is going to get done if it doesn't happen in a bipartisan way. So I thank you for your cooperation. Social Security is a part of the social fabric of America. Unfortunately, its trust fund for retirement and survivors' benefits will be exhausted in 6 years. Come 2032, seniors see their benefits cut by as much as 22%. To ensure this cut never happens, the entire nation needs to have an honest discussion about Social Security. This will require a president, members of Congress, political candidates, and leaders of senior advocacy group organizations to come clean about the facts with the American people. AARP and other organizations need to stop running commercials saying, "Don't cut," and instead start running ads saying, "Congress should act." Here's just a few Social Security facts. Social Security is facing a funding shortfall, largely due to demographics, because far fewer workers are paying into the Social Security relative to benefit recipients than at any time in the program's history. Secondly, the shortfall is large, very large. The present value of Social Security's unfunded obligations is a staggering $30 trillion. This fiscal hole cannot realistically be plugged simply through tax hikes on the wealthy. That's the Democrats' favorite solution, or by cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, which is the Republicans' favorite solution. Inaction on Social Security is not an option. The only threat to current retirees' benefits is partisan fear-mongering that impedes bipartisan action. And I always say this facetiously, but I want to say there's some truth to it as far as I'm concerned. We get calls in the office almost daily. Don't cut Social Security. I'm not on the phone talking to these constituents, but I'd like to say to them, if you knew how scared members of Congress of both political parties are of the issue of Social Security, you'd be laughing at us instead of calling in and saying, "Don't cut Social Security." Now, they have the perfect right to do that, and we have to take those positions into consideration because people actually have that fear. During my first term in the United States Senate, Social Security was also facing a funding shortfall. Fortunately, several political leaders of the era rose to the occasion. This included two prominent people, one a Republican, one a Democrat, President Reagan and Democrat Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. There are no Ronald Reagans and Tip O'Neills in D.C. today. That's why nothing has happened yet. And maybe they're here, but they haven't popped up yet, except take a lead on this bill or that bill. But to really get it together, it takes top people to do it. Reagan-O'Neill action began with an agreement in 1981 to establish the bipartisan National Commission on Social Security Reform to break a logjam in Congress. Both leaders agreed to refrain from political attacks on the commission's work to provide space for bipartisan solution form. The Commission's recommendation served as the basis for reform adopted with strong bipartisan support. I think in the United States Senate, there were less than 10 votes against this compromise. In turn, Social Security has made good on all promised benefits for the past 43 years. And I'll bet when Reagan and Tip O'Neill were done, they probably thought they were getting us through the next 20 years. You can see their foresight has gotten us at 43 years at this point and almost 50 years. It's now our turn, this generation of Congresses, to put partisan politics aside to save Social Security. In 1983, Republicans and Democrats will need to sit down, as in 1983, Republicans and Democrats will need to sit down together to consider a wide range of reform options. It's the only way that we'll find a solution that can clear 60 votes to pass the Senate. To foster productive bipartisan discussions, it would be helpful to agree on a set of common sense reform principles. And I don't presume that these are all of them, but these are principles as far as I'm concerned. First, no benefit reductions for current retirees or those near retirement. Second, reforms must prevent senior poverty as well or better than under current law. And third, reforms must be balanced. There's no path to 60 votes for far-left proposals focused solely on tax hikes. Sooner we get to work, the better. Today's shortfall is more than twice as large as in 1983. The longer we wait to act, the worse the options become. So let's get to work now to save Social Security once and for all, or at least for 50 years like Reagan and Tip O'Neill do. So I thank you again, Senator Sanders, for this cooperation for this hearing, and I look forward to hearing from you and other members, and first our witnesses. So please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for calling this hearing on, I think, one of the most significant crises this country is facing. You're right, it is a crisis, and let's figure out how we can work together to resolve it. What I want to do is, for a moment, put the issue of Social Security into a broader context, if I might. And the broader context is, Mr. Chairman, we are living in a moment in history where in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, we now have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had. Far surpasses the Gilded Age of Rockefeller and Carnegie and those guys. We are living in a moment when the people on top have never had it so good, while at the same time, some 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to put food on the table, pay their rent, pay for health care, other basic necessities of life. Everybody knows that. This is not some new discovery that I've made. I think that's a generally granted truth. In the midst of all of that, seniors are in particularly difficult trouble. And I think you mentioned that, Mr. Chairman. We are living at a time when, if you can believe it, over 20% of seniors in America are trying to survive on $15,000 a year. And Mr. Chairman, I don't think you could do that in Iowa, and I don't think you could do that in Vermont. Elderly people can't afford prescription drugs to heat their homes in the winter. Nursing home situation in America is a disaster, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, to be honest with you, Mr. Chairman, we have not paid enough attention to the plight of millions and millions of seniors in this country. And in the richest country on earth, we should do better than that. And on top of all of that, nearly half of older workers between the ages of 55 and 64 have no retirement savings, zero retirement savings as they approach ending their work days. And the average Social Security benefit today is just $1,934 a month, not a whole lot to live on. You are right in saying that Social Security Trust Fund is in danger, and that we have got to move sooner than later. And I share that goal with you and look forward to doing that. But our goal as we do that must be to make sure that we strengthen Social Security, that we increase its solvency, hopefully to 75 years, and we do that in a way that is fair. And I do not believe that it is fair, as some have talked about, to cut Social Security benefits, to raise the retirement age. I honestly don't think that is the direction in which we should be going. But I'll tell you what I do think, and I think there is more and more support for this. Mr. Chairman, you may have noticed there was an op-ed in the New York Times just a couple of days ago, written by a colleague of mine, somebody I work with a lot, Elizabeth Warren, but also signed by Bernie Moreno, a good Republican from Ohio, I'm sorry. And the idea that they talked about is the legislation that I have introduced. And it is not a complicated piece of legislation. It is something I will fight to see become law. And that is, we are in a situation right now where if Catherine here makes $10 million a year, and the chairman makes $186,000 a year, they both pay the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. If Musk makes whatever he makes, hundreds of millions a year, he pays the same amount as somebody making $186,000 a year, $184,000, I'm sorry, that's the number right now. And that is, I think most people understand, that is a bit absurd. It means that if you make $184,500 a year, and that's the cap, you pay 6.2% of your income in Social Security taxes. But if you make 10 times more than that, let's just say you make $1.8 million, you pay 0.6% of your income in Social Security. So the wealthy people pay a fraction of what working people pay into the fund. I don't think that that makes sense. Legislation that I have introduced applies the Social Security payroll tax on all income, including capital gains and dividends, for those who make over $250,000 a year. Under this bill, 91% of households would not see their taxes go up by 1 penny. The tax increase in our legislation only applies to the wealthiest 9% of Americans, those who make over $250,000 a year. In addition, under this legislation, we would increase COLA's, cost of living adjustment for seniors, by more accurately measuring their spending patterns through the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. That is what I believe we should be doing. So, Mr. Chairman, I do look forward to working with you, but I think the American people are catching on that the system, the economy today is not working for them. It's benefiting the very wealthy. And I think most Americans know that after you work your entire life, you should be able to retire with dignity and security. So my goal is to increase Social Security benefits, expand the solvency of Social Security, as I know you want to do, maybe 75 years, which would be great, but do it in a way that benefits working people and ask the wealthiest people in this country who have never had it so good to start paying their fair share of taxes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. I'll introduce the well, I pushed the button, but the light didn't come on. Mr. Shai Kabas is Vice President Economic Policy for the Bipartisan Policy Center and leads the organization's work on a variety of economic issues, including fiscal policy, retirement, and financial security, and as well as tax policy. He got his start at the Policy Center in 2010, staffing the Domenici-Rivlin Debt Reduction Task Force. Ms. Elizabeth Milito serves as Executive Director of the Small Business Legal Center of the National Federation of Independent Business. She handles legal and regulatory affairs for the NFIB and has testified before Congress and state legislatures on a broad range of legal and regulatory matters. She's a graduate of the University of Maryland Law School. And Ms. Nancy Altman is President of Social Security Works and Chair of the Strengthened Social Security Coalition. She's currently serves as a member of the Social Security Advisory Board and has 50 years background in the area of Social Security, Medicare, private pensions, and related programs. And we'll go from the way I introduced us. So you go, Mr. Abakis, go ahead. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Sanders, for holding this hearing. Having spent the better part of 2 decades working on federal fiscal and retirement policy, I can say with confidence, Social Security's outlook is more dire than at any point in my professional life. For tens of millions of Americans, retirees, disabled workers, widows, and children who lost a parent, Social Security is the foundation of their financial lives. Protecting it is not an abstraction, it is an obligation. Let me highlight 5 points from my written testimony. Number 1, Social Security is heading for a fiscal cliff. According to the latest trustees report, Social Security's primary trust fund will be depleted in 2032. Unless Congress acts, every single beneficiary, current retirees included, will face an automatic 22% benefit cut. That reflects a program out of balance, only taking in about 3/4 of what it pays out. A 22% benefit cut means $10,600 less per year for a married couple of 2 average earners. It means $4,800 less per year for the average widow or widower. For millions of Americans, that is the difference between dignity and hardship. And the uncertainty alone is already costly. Tens of millions of workers cannot plan confidently for a retirement benefit that may not fully be there. Number 2, there is a hard truth that we need to be honest about. The significant majority of Social Security beneficiaries receive far more in lifetime benefits than they paid into the program in payroll taxes. That is not a criticism of beneficiaries. It is mathematically how the program has evolved. People are living longer than its architects anticipated, collecting benefits for more years than the contribution structure supports. Until we are willing to say that plainly, we cannot design honest solutions. Number 3, delay is making the problem worse and shifting the burden onto younger generations. A decade ago, the Bipartisan Policy Center's Retirement Commission showed that a balanced reform package of benefit and revenue changes could have achieved 75-year solvency and prevented trust fund depletion entirely. That window has closed. The same package today could no longer accomplish both. Every year Congress waits, the required changes grow larger, and the burden shifts further onto younger workers. Number 4, we will likely need a bridge, but it must be paired with real reform. We have passed the point at which benefit and revenue changes alone can prevent the 2032 depletion. The timeline is simply too short. Some form of bridging mechanism, temporary borrowing authority, or a limited general revenue transfer will likely be required. But it must carry strict guardrails and be paired with meaningful structural reform. Bridging without reforming is not a solution. It is a more expensive version of the current problem, financed at the expense of future taxpayers. Number 5, the solution must be bipartisan and it must be balanced. Senate rules require 60 votes. No party is likely to get there alone, and no party will absorb the full political cost of either tax increases or benefit adjustments in isolation. A durable solution requires both sides to share the risk, just like the 1983 reforms. Any solution must also protect the most vulnerable. Low-income workers for whom Social Security is often their only meaningful source of retirement income, and surviving spouses who face sharp drops in income when a partner dies. I would also note that the U.S. senators elected this fall will, for the first time, be required to confront Social Security's insolvency during their term in office. That is a new political reality. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, Social Security's history is one of problems deferred. The longer Congress waits, the more disruptive the eventual fix will be. We cannot afford to hide behind pledges of no changes or proposals that address only one side of the ledger. Both paths lead to the same place, a benefit cliff that nobody claims to want, but everyone is marching toward. When both parties decide the cost of inaction exceeds the cost of action, a deal gets made. The American people are at that point. Congress needs to catch up. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Molito.
Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Sanders, and members of the committee, on behalf of the National Federation of Independent Business, I appreciate the opportunity to participate in today's hearing on the future of Social Security. For more than 80 years, NFIB has advocated for America's small and independent business owners in Washington, D.C. and all 50 state capitals. NFIB is nonprofit, nonpartisan, and member-driven. Since our founding in 1943, NFIB has been exclusively dedicated to small and independent businesses and remains so today. Small businesses have a supersized impact on the U.S. economy, as you well know. Over 34 million small businesses operate across the country. From 1995 to 2023, they generated 20.2 million net new jobs, surpassing the 12.8 million created by large businesses. Small businesses employ 49% of the American workforce, account for 99.9% of all U.S. businesses, and comprise 45.9% of the GDP. It is no exaggeration to say that for the American economy to succeed, small businesses must succeed. Over the past 18 months, Congress and the administration have delivered tax certainty and regulatory relief to small businesses. Notably, Congress passed H.R. 1, making the 20% small business deduction permanent. Additionally, the administration exempted U.S. businesses from the beneficial ownership information reporting requirement, eliminating a major compliance burden and saving small businesses over $128 billion in regulatory costs. Despite these major victories, small businesses continue to face many economic headwinds. Taxes, inflation, and labor costs remain the top challenges for small business owners. Uncertainty is the enemy of growth and investment, and it is high. Or, as one member recently shared, economic uncertainty is the biggest challenge, while another wrote, taxes are too high. Business seems to be getting harder and harder to make a profit. The message from small businesses to Congress is simple: do no economic harm. That message is especially relevant to today's hearing. Proposals such as the Social Security Expansion Act are often framed as affecting only millionaires and billionaires, but small businesses are not out of harm's way from these deceptively labeled proposals. For instance, a design to lift the current payroll tax cap and extend Social Security taxes to certain investment income would directly impact many small business owners. Small businesses often report on the owner's individual tax return because 85% of small businesses are pass-through entities, such as S-corps, sole proprietorships, and partnerships. These businesses would be subject to additional Social Security taxes under the proposal. Profits exceeding $250,000, which are now often reinvested in payroll, equipment, and business expansion, would face a new 12.4% surtax, even if owners do not withdraw that income personally. For these businesses, proposals like the Social Security Expansion Act represent not just a tax increase on the wealthy, but on the revenue that small business owners depend on to operate, to grow, and to expand their businesses. When pass-through businesses face higher tax rates, it leads to less investment in their most valuable asset, their workforce. Small businesses continue to face economic challenges. Congress can help mitigate these challenges by extending beneficial small business tax provisions and rejecting a $33.8 trillion tax hike. Tax certainty will help businesses plan and increase small business confidence. It is my hope that Congress will pursue reforms that promote economic growth, encourage workforce participation, and protect small business owners' ability to invest in their business and to create new jobs. A stronger economy ultimately produces more payroll tax revenue and will improve Social Security's long-term outlook without imposing new burdens on Main Street employers. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of small businesses.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Altman.
Social Security was enacted to provide basic economic security when wages are lost in the event of disability, death, or old age. Therefore, the first question we should ask is what level of benefits should Social Security provide? As I explain at length in my written statement, today's benefits are low by virtually any measure. Cutting those already inadequate benefits will deepen the nation's looming retirement income crisis. And cutting benefits will hurt the economy. On page 4 of my written statement, I list the dollar amount of Social Security benefits that flow into each of the subcommittee member states every month. By the same token, expanding Social Security's modest benefits will increase economic security and strengthen the economy. That leaves the question how the expanded benefits are financed and the shortfall eliminated. It's imperative to recognize that after Congress enacted the Social Security amendments of 1983, the subsequent trustees' report projected that Social Security was funded for the full 75-year valuation period and beyond, which ran through 2058. But the actuaries didn't and really couldn't anticipate the huge income and wealth inequality that followed those amendments. Recent decades have seen a dramatic increase in the share of income going to those at the top. That inequality has cost Social Security more than $1.5 trillion since 1983. That is $1.5 trillion that should have gone to Social Security, but instead stayed in the pockets of the wealthiest among us. This year's trustees' report has projected that Congress must act by 2032. That's 1 year sooner than last year's report projected. The earlier date is the result of Trump administration policies, specifically its first reconciliation bill, giving tax breaks to the wealthiest, and its hostility to immigrants, who every year contribute tens of billions more dollars to Social Security than they draw out. Moreover, the administration's tariffs and its war against Iran will undoubtedly increase unemployment and inflation, harming Social Security even more. The 2032 date is best understood as an action-forcing event. The question isn't whether Congress will act. It's unimaginable that you don't, but rather what you do and whether you act transparently through regular order or through an undemocratic, closed-door, fast-tracked process. Two pieces of good news. First, there's no question we can afford an expanded Social Security, whose total cost at the end of the century is less than 7% of GDP. The issue is one of values, not affordability. The second piece of good news is that as polarized as the American people are, we are united about Social Security. Poll after poll reports that from MAGA Republicans to progressive Democrats, the American people overwhelmingly reject benefit cuts, even if paired with some revenue increases. To be clear, raising the retirement age and means testing benefits are benefit cuts. Your constituents strongly and overwhelmingly prefer more revenue, ideally paid by the wealthiest. They also strongly support benefit increases. This is also the best policy. Fortunately, the Social Security Expansion Act is exactly what every poll shows the American people want. It should be brought into a vote immediately. What should not happen is the establishment of a commission whose recommendations are privileged and fast-tracked. That would be unprecedented and a deep disservice to the American people. Its only purpose would be to insulate and protect members of Congress from facing political accountability. Instead, all Social Security legislation should go through regular order, as it always has. Fortunately, when Congress does what the American people overwhelmingly want, and as the Social Security Expansion Act does, action can occur in the open and without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. The order will be Grassley, Sanders, Johnson, Wyden, Cassidy, Cortez, Mosto, and Tillerson Young. Listening to my colleagues about taxes on higher income people, even former President Obama's top economic advisor, Jason Furman, recognizes This is not the case. As Mr. Furman put it in a recent opinion piece for the New York Times, quote, applying the Social Security tax to all incomes would push the effective tax rate above 50%, end of quote. And this would, further quote, not leave a lot of room for further tax increases on the rich to close the budget deficit and fund other priorities. For you, Mr. Akabas, wouldn't my colleagues' preferred approach to Social Security ultimately lead to large tax hikes on middle class and severe cuts to other programs down the road?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. And I want to start by giving credit to members on both sides who have put forward ideas. That's exactly what we need, given the situation we're in, and increasing revenue, including through changes to the taxable maximum, should certainly be on the table as part of a comprehensive solution. But the matter of the fact is that Jason Furman is correct, and we have limited availability to raise revenue in our economy. We need a lot of revenue for a lot of different purposes right now, not to mention various areas where we're underinvesting, closing the federal deficit that is large and growing, and allocating a huge amount of money towards the Social Security system just from high-income taxpayers, including to fund more benefits for high-income earners, is not, I think, the best use of those dollars. And so that's why BPC has consistently said that we think a balance that includes both additional revenue to the program and benefit adjustments are necessary. And then finally, the program's benefit structure has not been updated in more than 40 years. And I think a solution that only looks at the revenue side but doesn't focus on some of the changes in demographics and labor force dynamics that we've had would be a huge missed opportunity.
Okay. Ms. Melito, many of my colleagues appear to be under the impression that eliminating the tax cap would only fall on the back of so-called wealthy. Can you elaborate on how such proposals would impose punitive tax hikes on small business? And I know you referred to this in your opening statement. And secondly, how would such proposals affect the ability of small business to compete with large corporations?
Thank you, Senator Grassley, for that question. And I think punitive is a good characterization, since the Social Security Expansion Act would impose 3 new massive taxes, and a lot of those would fall on small businesses. And saying that most households won't see a tax increase with the elimination of the tax cap doesn't change the fact that the taxes would be imposed on many pass-through small businesses. And the concern isn't about, in my opinion, about the number of households that are affected. It's whether taxing those businesses that invest and create jobs is the right way to strengthen Social Security. I think this mantra, let's raise taxes on small businesses so that we can pay more, is not a winning slogan on Main Street. The outlook on Main Street right now is very different than the outlook on Wall Street. There is not an infusion of capital on Main Street right now. Small business owners use that income, which is referred to in the proposal as investment income, as savings and a way to expand their business, to hire new employees, and they put it away for a rainy day. So it would very much impact their ability to also compete with larger businesses.
And for you as well, some of my colleagues attempt to limit the reach of a small business tax hike by eliminating the tax cap only for taxpayers with earnings over $250,000. However, this threshold is not indexed. So won't this result in ever more small businesses getting hit by the tax hike?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly would, Senator. So if the threshold, the $250,000 threshold, is not indexed for inflation, its real value is going to decline over time. So what starts as a tax on a relatively small number of employees and small business owners could become a tax on many, many more taxpayers, savers, and small businesses in the future.
This will have to be my last question, so Mr. Akos. Wage subject to Social Security tax have been capped since the program's enactment in 1935, yet some of my colleagues argue it's fundamentally unfair. So for you, what is the purpose of the Social Security tax wage cap, and how would its elimination alter Social Security structure as an earned benefit based on contributions?
Thank you, Senator. The cap has been part of Social Security from the beginning because it connects what you pay in to what you receive out of the program. Social Security's 90-year political durability is in part resting on that principle, that it is an earned benefit and not a welfare program. And the more you contribute throughout your career, the more you receive in retirement. I think lifting the cap without changing the benefit formula would, of course, change that linkage. And that raises a fundamental question about what kind of program we want Social Security to be. Given where the program is, I think all options need to be on the table, but we should carefully consider any changes that truly break that linkage because it changes the fundamental nature of the program. I would say that we at BPC have supported increasing the taxable maximum as part of a broader package, but that would still retain the link between earnings and benefits.
Okay, Senator Sanders.
Thanks. Before I ask my questions, let me just state for the record that the legislation that we are talking about, the bill that I've introduced, the Social Security Expansion Act, would not raise taxes except on those making more than $250,000, which would exclude the vast majority of small business owners from paying a penny in additional taxes. In reality, the vast majority of the additional tax would be paid for by wealthy business owners and investors who, in the last many years, have been able to avoid billions in taxes. All right, let me begin by asking all of the panelists a very brief question, if I might. Do you agree with me and virtually every economist that we are seeing more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time in the history of the country? Mr. Akabas, is that true?
Absolutely.
Yes, Senator, and the amount of earnings that are above the taxable maximum are now
Ms. Melito, very briefly, is that true?
growing.
My members tell a different story based on our most recent
They do
economic
not
trends.
believe that we are seeing now more income and wealth inequality than any time in America.
They are in a very uncomfortable period right now. Thank you.
That may be the case, but it doesn't deny the reality that we have more income and wealth inequality. Ms. Altman?
Unquestionably, the data
All right,
absolutely
let me
shows
ask
that.
my next question. The CEO of Warner Brothers, just as an example, just one, his name is David Zaslav, made $165 million in compensation. CEO of Blackstone made $126 million in compensation. We're seeing some of these guys are making huge amounts in compensation. Question to Mr. Akabas, and I'll go down to the whole panel. Do you think it is fair that somebody who makes $126 million in compensation pays the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund as somebody who makes $184,000? Is that fair?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think it's important to consider that Social Security is structured as an earned benefit program. And so while I certainly...
I know we can go on for hours. I'm just asking you, you're the average person here. Is it fair?
I agree we need to be collecting more revenue from higher income taxpayers as part of the solution to Social Security's.
Ms. Melito, do you think it's fair?
Social Security was set up as a contributory comp act, so as it is now, that is the system we are working under.
Well, that
and I
is
think
the system.
it was also President Clinton, too, that also cautioned against raising taxes.
What President Clinton said is fine. That's not my view. I simply asked you whether it is fair. But the ordinary person thinks it's fair that somebody's making $100 million, pays the same amount into the trust fund as somebody's making $184,000. Do you think it's fair?
The way Social Security is established
Okay.
now, yep.
Okay. Ms. Altman?
No, I don't. And in fact, it's even worse. Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest men in the world, only pays himself $80,000, so he pays less than someone making $184,500.
Okay. Ms. Altman, some of my Republican colleagues in one form or another have talked about raising the retirement age, privatizing Social Security, cutting COLAs, and reducing Social Security benefits. What impact would that have on millions of seniors?
As you said in your opening statement, Seniors are already, and people with disabilities are struggling to get by. They're deciding between food and medicine, and all of those changes that you named would make that struggle much harder, and it would hurt the economy. For every $1 of Social Security benefits that are paid, it generates $2 of economic activity, and the reverse is true if you cut those benefits.
Ms. Altman, I want you to say a word about a fact that I don't think is widely known, but it really is an American tragedy, and that is due to a lack of funding for the Social Security Administration, some 30,000 Americans with disabilities die every year waiting for the Social Security benefits they have earned. What should Congress do about this? Is the Trump administration considering making this problem even worse?
Unfortunately, the Trump administration has already made it worse. It's forced out the most experienced workers and really decimated the agency. I think what Congress should do is immediately enact the Keep Billionaires Out of Social Security Act, which provides the money that pays for Social Security and the administration of it don't add a penny to the deficit. They all come out of dedicated revenue.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you know, there is always a reason given why we should not ask the wealthiest people in this country who have enormous political power through their super PACs, et cetera, always a reason why they should not be asked to pay their fair share of taxes. But today, as I mentioned earlier, we are living in a rather strange moment in American history. Never before in American history have so few held so much wealth and so much power. And meanwhile, while the people on top have never, ever had it so good, we are seeing senior citizens in Vermont and throughout this country literally struggling to pay for their prescription drugs, to put food on the table, heat their homes. In the richest country on earth, we can do better than that. And I think basically, bottom line here, is this Congress is going to have to summon up the courage to stand up to some enormously powerful people and their super PACs and expand Social Security benefits, extend the solvency of Social Security, and do that by lifting the cap that currently exists. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question of Senator Sanders real quickly? Senator Sanders, I don't know, is in your, I gather there's a donut hole, is this bottom figure indexed to inflation?
The donut hole is right now, we are at 250, you're at 184. And is it indexed to inflation? No, it's not.
Not, okay, thank you.
Senator Johnson.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, well, we'll never fix this if we're not willing to take a look at the reality of what Social Security is. Again, it was a forced savings program. What you paid in was supposed to be invested, and then the beauty of compound interest, you'd be able to collect retirement based on what you paid in, correct? Mr. Akabas?
Excuse me, sorry, Senator, yes.
And again, Americans thought that that money was being invested, but the money was spent, it's gone, right? And in its place was a U.S. government bond put into the trust fund. So how much value does a U.S. government bond have to a U.S. government agency? The answer is zero, right? Because when the trustees take that bond to pay out benefits because benefits exceed revenue right now, the U.S. Treasury just has to issue another bond, right?
Correct.
So again, the trust fund is a fiction. And already we are either borrowing or taking out the general fund to make up the difference between benefits and receipts, correct?
On an annual basis, yes.
So again, what's unfair about the lifting the cap is it violates the basis, the basic foundation of Social Security, which is you pay in and you get out what you pay in. But so if you want to turn it to total welfare system, that's a different conversation. Already it's quite the welfare system. I'll submit for the record, Table 1, the money's worth ratios for hypothetical workers with various earnings levels. And I'll just talk about the middle three, low income, median income, and high income. The people who benefit best are one earner couples. They get the most out of Social Security. So if you're a low income Again, this is a very detailed table, but the people who make out the best is somebody born in 1973, single income couple. They get it $3.33 out for every buck they put in, okay? If you're a single man, high wage earner, born in 1943, you're gonna get 63 cents out. So again, it's all over the map, but it's very imprecise in terms of, you know, what you put in versus what you get out. And now what the Democrats want to do is they just want to alleviate that, do great harm to our economy, because again, small businesses that, you know, that gets taxed at the individual level. You know, Mr. Bezos is a C Corp, and I'd love to talk to you about taxing all business income at the ownership level, turn everybody into pass-throughs, then you wouldn't have that problem. But again, you've got to recognize how grossly mismanaged Social Security was. I did a chart, this is a spreadsheet years ago. Had we taken those surpluses, actually invested them into, let's say, a stock index fund, which I know we didn't have back then, but something equivalent. Back then, we would have something like $8 trillion. With the run-up in the stock markets, probably about $15 trillion of hard assets. We'd be talking about increasing benefits, but we didn't do that. So now the solution for fixing Social Security is lift the cap and just tax the wealthy, who are, by the way, based on the deal that Social Security was supposed to be. $1 put in, you're going to get that plus compound interest. They're not getting it. They're getting 63 cents, as low as 63 cents. So, Mr. Akabas, just comment on one of the points I made there.
Well, Senator, I certainly agree that we have reached a point where the significant majority of beneficiaries are receiving far more than they contributed into the program over their lifetime. And that's frankly...
That's pretty much the case right now.
Yes, that is the case, and that's, you know, in part why we are at a point where the program is mismatched between the revenues that are paid in and the benefits that are being taken out. And so we need to find ways on both sides of the ledger to make those lines grow closer together.
So again, my point is, let's honestly look at what Social Security was, how it was set up, how grossly mismanaged it was, how economically destructive it will be to increase. I mean, 12% increase in taxes on a small business person, and you may say it's wealthy, but you're making 250 grand as a small business, you make $500,000, you're putting that additional $250,000 into plant and equipment to grow the business, to create jobs. Again, unfortunately, a lot of our Democrat colleagues don't understand how the private sector works and what wealthy people do with their money. They invest it to the benefit of our economy. So again, it starts with recognizing reality, how grossly mismanaged Social Security was. Then let's start looking for real solutions. And by the way, it's not going to be a calamity. It shouldn't be. I mean, already we are making up benefits because benefits exceed revenue. Just because the trust fund runs out doesn't mean that we won't be able to or shouldn't plus up benefits to meet the promise, right? It's just that the fiction of the trust fund runs out, and now all of a sudden, by law, you're supposed to have to reduce benefits, but we won't. What we need to do is reduce the deficit, return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending so we have the wherewithal to plus up benefits. That's the first thing we ought to do. Reduce the deficit by reducing spending. Thank you.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Federation of Government Employees asked that we put their statement into the record. I'd ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's good to have our guests here. And I want to start with the basic proposition of fairness in Social Security. Now, it is well established that billionaires and trillionaires get to decide when and if they pay federal taxes. But for somebody who works for a wage, I'm talking about a nurse, I'm talking about an electrician, they pay automatically every year. I hope my colleagues will say, and a number of us are on the Finance Committee, that we ought to have the same rules for everybody. Now, wealthy people who are interested in doing it can call up their lawyer and their accountant, and they can say, make sure I don't take a wage this year. I'll be able to live off my loans, these incredible loans I get from their favorable treatment from banks. Question one, Ms. Altman, is it fair that billionaires and trillionaires can avoid paying tax on their income when the working person gets their tax taken out of every paycheck?
No, it is not fair. I mean, the concept of the wealthy who arguably benefit the most from the government, from courts and military, and because they have the most property, should pay more, is a basic American value. And you're keeping Billionaires Act exactly the right way to go.
Well, 24 United States senators are saying, yes, we ought to have a system that's fair for everybody. And it seems to me Americans can do better than creating trillionaires while millions of Americans worry about getting Social Security slashed. Now, here's the question that I wanted to ask based on this op-ed that came from my two colleagues, Senator Marino and Senator Warren. Now, if you increase the Social Security tax cap, and then you take my billionaire's income tax, question for you, Ms. Altman, would it be possible to start restoring some fairness in the tax code while preventing benefit cuts or forcing seniors to put off retirement?
Absolutely. There are going to be important byproducts if you bring in more revenue, increase Social Security's benefits, because one of the byproducts would be meaningful tax reform, because you'd have a counterweight of the American people would either suffer benefit cuts, it's not just good government, or billionaires start paying their fair share.
So let me ask our colleague at the other end of the table, do you disagree with the responses that Ms. Altman gave to me?
Well, thank you, Senator, for the question. My perspective is that we certainly need higher income Americans to be contributing to the solution on
But on the question of equal treatment, the ultimate proposition here, and that was what was done at the start of Social Security, was fairness. The American people, it's like in our DNA. Wouldn't it be fair to have the same system for everybody?
Well, Senator, I think there are important questions around that, like would we pay out the same benefits for everybody?
I'm not asking that today. We're going to ask that in the Finance Committee and all over the country. But on the basic proposition of fairness, when that nurse and electrician pays taxes with every single paycheck, and people who are up at the very top can call up their accountant and lawyer and say, make sure I don't take any income this year, I think something's out of whack here. And I just want to make sure that we say, whether you're blue or red or however you come to this issue, that that's something we settle on. No?
I agree, Senator, that we need to make sure that high-income taxpayers are contributing on whatever form of income that they have. I think it's a somewhat more complex question in terms of the revenue coming in and the benefits that are being paid out.
We'll have to talk about
how fairness is considered.
There's no question about it. But if we have a system that's fair for everybody, I think we can avoid cutting Social Security, and that's what my colleagues are talking about on our side of the aisle. And one last question, if I can get it in. And perhaps Ms. Molina will get you into this debate. We've seen a disturbing trend of Social Security being haphazard with American sensitive information and even weaponizing it that would, in reality, take away people's earned benefits. Just a few weeks ago, we heard from a brave former Social Security official who detailed how the Trump administration sought to falsely declare nearly 3 million people, many of whom are deceased, many of whom are U.S. citizens, as deceased. What's your position on this question of further protection with privacy statutes, tough privacy rules to protect your members and others?
Well, we certainly want to make sure that the Social Security system is secure and that private information is protected. I mean, my members ask that of all federal agencies because they know the federal government has a lot of their personal information, a lot of their employees' personal information.
I'm going to quit while I'm ahead on that issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, let's see, the next person is Senator Cassidy.
I'll defer to Senator Tillis.
Okay, Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Senator Cassidy, and Senator Grassley, thank you for letting me sit on this committee. I'm not an official member. Back when I was 12 years old, back in 1973, I had to apply for a work permit so that I could work for a convenience store. And in 1973, I posted my first contribution to Social Security as a 13-year-old, 12-year-old actually, $33. And I've been blessed. I don't know if I call myself rich, but Ms. Altman, let's talk about what rich means. We picked Bezos, we picked some of the other ones. What's rich to you? What's the threshold for rich that we should be applying all of this rich people stuff too? What's that threshold? Because ultimately, as a matter of legislation, we got to come up with one. So what's rich in your mind?
Well, certainly the top 1%, there's been a
Now, give me an
increasing-
income level. Give me an income level.
Well, often for tax purposes, it's $250,000. There's proposals that are
$250,000. Does that sweep
$400,000.
in the small businesses, the rich people that are members of NFIB? I'm just trying to get a
You may be
beat
able
on it.
to exempt small business
Okay.
owners.
Let me just tell you, just an observation. I don't want to be antagonistic towards you all. Mr. Akabas, in your opening statement, you talked about the reality of people running for reelection. Quite honestly, when I was weighing whether or not I run for reelection, the reality that I would be running hard to then inherit an insolvency issue with Social Security was a real consideration for me. I have no doubt that in the next 6 years, Congress is going to have to face up. My concern is I don't see any change in rhetoric whatsoever. If you go back to 2010 and the Simpson-Bowles Commission, we had an opportunity to fix it then. The debt was at about $12 trillion. The Simpson-Bowles subtitle, the report was Moment of Truth. Now the debt's at $36 trillion. I heard somebody say, well, we won't cut benefits, we'll just stroke a check. Mr. Akabas, what happens if we continue our debt trajectory right now? Do you necessarily think that we have a check that we can stroke without causing other debt problems? I mean, how do we avoid the mandatory cuts? And what is our bank account and our check writing ability likely to look at in 2032, in 2032?
Thank you, Senator. That is a huge concern. The growing debt burden that we have as a country, where debt is already equal to approximately 100% of GDP, is already slowing economic growth.
So are there
raising
other
interest
economists
rates.
saying that our debt to GDP at the same time that we're dealing with the insolvency issue with Social Security, all those things may come to roost at the same time?
Yes, we need to be considering that
So,
comprehensively.
Ms. Altman, why is it? I did a town hall years ago in Asheville when I was first running for Senate. Lady came up to me and she said, sir, she called me speaker. I was Speaker of the House. I can't vote for you because you're going to end Social Security and Medicare. And I said, well, ma'am, I checked with my mama, and she said she'd be really mad at me if I did that. And yet people are messaging that Republicans are here to kill Social Security. Does anybody really believe that that would be fiscally or politically wise? But if we continue that rhetoric, what's going to happen here is we're going to talk past each other. And instead of considering extraordinarily well thought out proposals by people like Senator Cassidy that has Democrats engaged, we come out here and we're just sparring at either end of the political spectrum. We're not showing any hope of here. What is wrong with me telling a 25-year-old, you may have to wait a year longer for you to get your Social Security benefits as a part of fixing them? What's wrong with me telling somebody that's 40 years away from qualifying for Social Security that you may have to wait another year? The bad news is you got to wait another year. The good news is if we implement the reforms, you'll actually be able to get that check. What's wrong with that?
That 25-year-old and 40-year-old are going to need Social Security more than today's seniors.
My question is,
because
if they have 40 years to prepare, if you see the changes, why is a year longer that problem? Why is it so sacrosanct?
Because what Social
life
Security
expectancy and earning potential.
Because what Social Security is insurance, it's not savings. With
So
all
it
due
is your
respect.
view, you can't touch age limits.
No.
You can't do any indexing. It must stay firm, or the organization you represent would come across any compromise. Is that your view?
We're happy to talk about revenue increases.
But you would
different
oppose
kinds.
anything that has to do with indexing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Cortez Masto. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Obviously, an important one, and we're going to have to, we definitely, as Congress, working, with the private sector, we're going to have to do something here, and it has to be in a bipartisan way. So I appreciate the conversation. Let me ask a couple questions that haven't been asked here, because I read through the trustees' report. There are some policy decisions that actually have been made that have harmed the Social Security program. And I think if we can just undo some of that, maybe, that we can still work forward and make sure that we are not, at least between now and trying to address this problem, passing policy decisions or making policy decisions that are going to continue to harm. So let me talk about a couple of things that I know in Nevada that are challenging. And Ms. Altman, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this or respond. Many Nevadans I have experienced and talked to are dealing with SSA, the Social Security Administration, has significantly worsened because of the Trump administration's policy changes and staff cuts. Staff cuts. For example, in Clark County, Nevada, where Las Vegas is, there's a backlog of more than 500 foster youth who are currently unable to obtain their Social Security cards due to new burdensome documentation requirements recently imposed by the SSA, and recent staffing shortages are also making it more difficult to find a solution for these children. Let me ask you this. In your view, Ms. Altman, what will be the long-term consequences of such steep staffing cuts for the future of the Social Security Administration's efficiency in customer services? And why is it adequate to have the appropriate staffing that we need? Can you talk a little bit about that impact as we are dealing with Social Security right now?
Absolutely. And certainly anecdotally, well, not even anecdotally, it's taking months to get an appointment at a Social Security office, long waits on the phone, and so forth. The staffing is at a 50-year, I think it's a 59-year low, at a time when 12,000 Americans are turning 65 every single day. So I think, I think absolutely this is, if people cannot have their questions answered, access their benefits, that's like cutting their Social Security. So it's a very serious problem.
So let me ask you, Mr. Akabas, is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's a Cabas, but
Oh, thank you.
no worries.
So the trustees recently came out with a report. We've all been talking about that. And is it true that in that report, the biggest drivers to the increase in the deficit that we are talking about right now, in order of magnitude, are one, lower fertility rate projections, two, lower net immigration projections because of the current administration's deportation policy, and then three, the Republican reconciliation bill, they call it the one big beautiful bill, it's H.R. 1. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, those are the three of the changes in the trustees' projections that have occurred since the last report.
And can you talk a little bit about why the immigration issue is having an impact, what we're dealing with immigration now, and why it's having an impact on this issue with respect to the funding of Social Security?
Sure. The trustees have changed their projections around the number of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Most of those all of those undocumented immigrants cannot receive benefits from Social Security, but many of them pay into the program. And so reducing the number that are assumed to be in the United States in the coming years will mean less revenue into the program, and that worsens the financial state of Social Security.
So if we were to pass wholesale immigration reform and have a really thoughtful process about immigration reform, would that actually add revenue to the Social Security Trust Fund?
Yes, immigration reform would bring more workers into the country on net, and that would contribute more to the revenue base of the Social Security program.
Thank you. And then one final question. Let me talk about data breaches. Ms. Altman, I'm going to go back to you. We know that because of a whistleblower report earlier this year alleging that a former DOJ employee detailed at the Social Security Administration who had access to two tightly restricted databases of Americans' personal information copied at least one of those databases onto a personal thumb drive. And according to this whistleblower allegation, the DOJ employee planned to upload this data into the systems of his soon-to-be employer, a private government contractor, for its own use. So, Ms. Altman, can you please share with the committee why this data is such a prime target for bad actors?
This is people's most personal data, and it's also enormously useful for a scammer. It has, if you've applied for disability benefits, it has your medical records. If you've got your Social Security number, your bank routing number, your spouse's name, if you've been divorced, it has so much information, and it's been entrusted to the government with the understanding that it would be used for the specific mission of making sure people get their Social Security benefits. So this really calls, I think, for oversight and for enactment of some legislation that's been proposed, the Protecting Seniors Data Act and the Keeping Billionaires Out of Social Security Act. It's very, very serious.
Thank you. And then finally, I know my time is up. I'm just going to put a plug in here. I was pleased to join my colleague, Senator Cassidy, on the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. I thank you so much. I think it's good policy. It's good legislation. Thank you for the panelists.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Grassley. And Chairman Grassley was here when we last fixed social. So thank you for your leadership. You're going to bookend how we fix social. I say bookend because there's a bipartisan group of senators working to fix social this Congress. Why is that important? Because if we don't, whereas now it's a 22% cut in benefits if we don't fix it, or else a much greater rise in taxes. If we wait till the last minute, it'll be a 28% cut in benefits, or it'll be that much more in taxes. So the reality is the sooner we act, the better, and it's incumbent upon us, and no time like the present. I'll just briefly mention also something that Senator Kaine and I have. We call it the big idea, which would be to set up an investment fund separate from the Social Security Trust Fund, basically a pension investment fund used by unions and used by large corporations that would meet future pension obligations, put $1.5 trillion in it over 5 years, and invest it in the broader economy. If you do the numbers, clearly the economy can handle this. And as you do, all growth comes back into the fund. We would pay scheduled benefits, so you'd offset the borrowing. And by the rule of 72, at some point, the money just blossoms out. When both President Trump and Senator Sanders spoke about a portion of these big companies being used for the benefit of the American people, this is, in a sense, that concept that we use the growth in the economy in these sorts of assets to benefit the American people. And this would be a way to, among other things, increase benefits for some, to give credit for people taking time off to raise a child, because the amount it would throw off would do that. You still need to do some more things. There's political things that we have to do. But just to say that maybe there is bipartisan right now, so I'll just comment on that. Next, I also want to speak that, just to elaborate a little bit upon that, which, and then I'll ask you, Ms. Altman, to comment on. With Senator Cortez Masto, we have the Social Security Disability, or the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. Right now, if you're on SSI and you save a little bit of money, you lose your benefit. It's a totally wrong incentive. You're incentivized to waste money. As opposed, and whenever they established 2,000 as a limit, they did not index it to inflation. We would raise that to 10,000, which is about where it would be if indexed to inflation. And if you will, encourage wise fiscal management by somebody who's on SSI. Ms. Altman, I'll ask you to comment first on the importance of this policy, then you, sir, because I see you nodding your head yes. And if you're nodding your head yes, you like my bill. So, Ms. Altman.
It is so important. Anyone who is pro-savings and pro-family should support the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. It hasn't been increased for almost 40 years. And not only does the current law discourage savings and has a marriage penalty, it's a huge source of overpayments and improper payments, creating huge administrative costs. So if your bill were enacted, my understanding is that it would reduce overpayments by 70%.
Really? So what you're suggesting that maybe the CBO would score it as a savings?
I can't speak for the CBO.
Okay, gotcha. Mr. Akabas.
Yes, Senator, thank you for your leadership on this. BPC Action has endorsed the legislation, and particularly at a time when we are trying to address Social Security and encourage people to save more in the private sector system, penalizing them at the same time by taking away their SSI benefits for the fact that they have saved for retirement seems entirely nonsensical.
Yes. Ms. Melito, there's some pretty heavy-duty taxes being tossed around. And I say that because when on the campaign trail, I just see these small businesswomen and these small businessmen who are kind of, can I hire another person? And yet the cost of the taxes and the cost of the benefits to the small business owner makes it difficult for her to do so. There's a woman out of DeRidder, Louisiana. She came to a roundtable I had, and she spoke of, she got 3 or 4 coffee shops, and can she hire another person? At that time, we were talking about the high cost of health care. But this would be a 14% tax on top of that. I don't know what she makes, and I don't know what she'd be subject, but let's imagine, because many would be. Any comments upon how the kind of taxes being discussed, if we just try to do this by raising taxes on both the investment tax as well as the income tax, what that would do for the capital required to expand a business or to improve salary for employees?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. And one thing I was thinking as you were talking about this business owner who you talk with too is I think she would probably really challenge the notion that she doesn't pay her fair share of taxes. I think, she would find that very insulting if somebody said to her, you don't pay your fair share of taxes, because that really, I think, would hit home for a lot of business owners. And I also think that that business owner and my members too would most definitely characterize themselves as working persons too, because most business owners do pay payroll taxes on their wages too. So we're getting back to the proposal there. Yes, this would be make it very difficult to expand a business, hire another employee, offer benefits for employees too, because it's another layer in the taxes. Our Small Business Economic Trends Survey from May had taxes as the #1 problem that small business owners are dealing right now with, above inflation, above labor costs there. So, and it's, it's layer after layer with taxes too. So this, additional payroll tax there, and that would hit a business owner that maybe has a good year and makes $300,000. So that's going to hit an additional, 12.4%, because again, remember, if you're a pass-through entity, you're paying both sides. There's no other employer that's paying 6.2%. You're paying the full 12.4%. And then, oh, by the way, if they maybe have a good year and they have income, that's going to be taxed now at this new surcharge tax on top, in addition to federal, state income, property taxes, sales, use tax. It goes on and on and on. So very challenging for small business owners. And this, you can't tax your way out of fiscal crisis.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Ms. Altman, I have a bill called the Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act that would do a number of things: lift the cap on contributions for salary above $400,000, and then also bring in self-employment and investment income, including wages that are basically often disguised by high earners as distributed profits, dodging the Medicare and Social Security systems. The Medicare and Social Security actuaries have both taken a look at the bill and said that they make those programs sound and solvent as far as the actuarial eye can see, which is 75 years. What is your comment on those ideas? How complicated would that be to actually implement? And does it meet your notion of a fairness test?
Absolutely. In fact, our organization and many of the organizations in our Social Security Coalition has endorsed that legislation. It really shows that the question before this committee and Congress is one of values, not affordability. No one under $400,000 would pay a penny more under yours, and yet Social Security would be extended for 75 years, and I would argue it doesn't burden those over 400,000. It's I think, well-crafted.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a question of will around here, not a question of solving some abstruse technical problem. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be very sophisticated at accounting and tax. You just have to want to fix Medicare and Social Security, and then all the pieces fall into place.
And if I may say, this is a heavily polled area, and every poll shows that from the most conservative Republicans to the most progressive Democrats, they want this solved on the revenue side, not with a single penny of benefit cuts. So your proposal and the Ranking Member Sanders' proposal are exactly what 80% of the American people say they want, or a higher percentage.
There's a concept in economics that's often referred to as the marginal utility of money, or the marginal value of money. And it hypothesizes that if you're struggling to make a living as a nurse or a carpenter on construction, let's say it's your last $1,000, Your last $1,000 is a big deal to you. If that last $1,000 disappears, you damn well notice it at the end of the month, and it affects your choices, it affects your lifestyle. If you are a hedge fund character and you make $200 million in a year, the last $1,000 has essentially zero value to you. You don't even know whether it's there or not. Just your portfolio wobbling around is enough to erase and replace that on a daily basis. And so, is it fair to consider the concept of the marginal utility of money in solving a problem like this on the revenue side?
Yeah, yes, and in fact, on the spending side as well, Social Security benefits generally go to low and middle income people who spend them in their local communities immediately. And it's been estimated that for every $1 of Social Security benefits that's paid, it's $2 of economic activity. I think it's 12 million jobs that were created in 2023, that kind of thing. So absolutely, your proposal, and again, Senator Sanders' proposal, will strengthen the economy, whereas any benefit cuts will weaken the economy.
Yeah, that's on the benefit side. I meant on the revenue side.
Yeah, and that's...
On the revenue side, is it not fairer to look at funding Social Security and Medicare out of the wealth?
Yes.
That very wealthy people don't even know exists, that they'll never know if it's not there. It's marginal utility dollar, zero value compared to people who are working on a regular salary and paying taxes like regular human beings.
Absolutely. It's unimaginable. A trillionaire, Elon Musk, he couldn't spend that in 100 lifetimes. And so absolutely on the revenue side, and it's a basic American value that we have progressive taxation for just the reasons you're saying. So I think it's absolutely the right way to think about it.
I think Ben Franklin said that the trick to taxation is to get as many feathers as you can off the goose without the goose honking. This is like huge feather pillows worth of feathers that a goose like Elon Musk would never notice. Never notice. It has literally zero value or utility to him, and yet deployed in this way can enhance the economy and enhance the quality of people's lives. Thank you.
I want to thank you three people for participating in everything, and for all the members who aren't here, but for the benefit of you folks that may get these questions, the record will remain open for 1 week. Senators wishing to submit questions for the record must do so by July 1st at 5 p.m. Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Well, let me thank the panelists as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.